I'm Liz Faublas, and this is Current's Week in Review. Pope Benedict XVI's last full week as our pontiff is coming to a close tonight. The Holy Father has spent these days serenely in prayerful reflection on the meaning of Lent. Meantime, at the Vatican, a tumultuous week. Preparations for the Pope's last public appearance and his departure from Rome next week, much speculation about possible successors, and reactions to reports of feuds and power plays by some members of the church hierarchy. Now, the Vatican's chief spokesman is refusing to confirm or deny news accounts that 3 cardinals assigned by Benedict to investigate Vatican affairs have discovered a network of homosexuals inside the Holy See. Father Federico Lombardi will only say the stories are creating a, quote, tension that is the opposite of what the Pope wants. He is commenting, however, on Benedict's new title. After the Holy Father's resignation goes into effect on February 28th, he'll be known as Bishop Emeritus of Rome, and he'll be addressed as Your Holiness Benedict XVI. One of the titles assigned to all popes is Bishop of Rome. Well, Americans tonight are offering strong support for the Holy Father. Almost 3 of every 4 U.S. Catholics have a favorable opinion of the Pope, and a majority support traditional Catholic teachings, but not when it comes to priests and marriage. Most think priests should be allowed to marry. While Benedict's reign as pontiff comes to a close, the persecution of his flock continues. The communists in China are dramatically increasing their crackdown on Christians. Cases of torture and imprisonment are up more than 40% in just a year. And beyond the brutality against people, electricity and water are being cut off to church buildings. The government is in the middle of a campaign to eradicate any church not approved by the communists. The retired Cardinal of Hong Kong puts part of the blame on the Vatican. Cardinal Joseph Zen says Rome has appeased Beijing, permitting them to exert control over the church. And now the government-approved churches are nothing but slaves to the communists. Meantime, the communists next door in North Korea continue to rattle sabers and beat war drums, threatening to unleash their weapons on the South. Now comes word tonight that a new ballistic missile is about to be tested by North Korea just days after an underground nuclear bomb test. In the South, as the tensions rise, so do the preparations for war.
If you want to warn off your belligerent neighbour, this is certainly one way to do it. A demonstration of South Korean firepower that can annihilate a football field 40 kilometres away within seconds. These multiple rocket launchers are just part of the country's artillery positioned in the snow-capped mountains in Gangwon province close to the DMZ, all facing north. It comes after North Korea's 3rd nuclear test that was met with a chorus of international condemnation and the threat of further UN sanctions.
And they know that the consequences will be grave if they attack us. So by showing that we are effectively defending our country, that's the key reason why they cannot attack us.
Commander Yong Won-kyun says his soldiers are on high alert and constantly monitoring enemy troop movements. The 2 Koreas are still technically at war, despite signing an armistice in 1953 at the end of the Korean War.
We are here to fight. We are here to win. That's why we are here.
Commander, you're ready to go to war?
All this given to us. I'm soldiers, I'm warriors, you know. And my people rely on me because we are fighters.
And just in case Pyongyang wasn't paying attention, South Korea's defense ministry showed off cruise and ballistic missiles they say have been deployed to strike anywhere at any time in North Korea.
With the escalation of tensions here on the Korean peninsula, this display of force is not just for show. In the past, South Korea has reluctantly turned the other cheek to North Korea's aggressive behaviour. But there is a growing sentiment in this country that further provocations will lead to military retaliation.
The last time the peninsula was on the brink of war was in 2010, when a North Korean submarine sunk a South Korean warship, killing 46 sailors. Months later, the North Korean military shelled Yongpyeon Island. Analyst Andrei Lankov says while both countries are afraid of war, Pyongyang won't let anything stop its nuclear weapons program.
North Korea is going to become a nuclear power, a full-scale nuclear power, and will remain such as long as the Kim family stay in control.
Which means this show of force will remain a fixture on the Korean Peninsula for years, if not decades to come. Anna Koren, CNN, Gangwon Province, South Korea.
Coming up next, a story that will be very hard to forget as Current's Week in Review continues after the break. Welcome back to Current's Week in Review. There is a very controversial decision to report tonight as part of our coverage of life's sanctity. The bishops of Germany are approving the use of the so-called morning after pill for women who have been raped. The bishops are saying the pill is okay if it's used as a contraceptive, but not to induce an abortion. Meantime, in our Diocese of Brooklyn, Auxiliary Bishop Raymond Geppetto and members of the pro-life group Helpers of God's Precious Infants have taken the fight for life into the streets. Joined in prayer, they traveled to an abortion mill in downtown Brooklyn to proclaim their love for the unborn and ask for our Blessed Mother's intercession. The pilgrimage began with Mass at St. James Cathedral.
Today, as we come together to celebrate this Mass for life, this Mass that expresses our deep respect for all life, we ask God to bless the efforts that we will extend this morning in the cause of life. You make a statement that life is important, that life is precious, that life is sacred, life is from God. Blessed art thou amongst women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners now and at the hour of our death.
"15 seminarians from Boston joined the prayer vigil. Meantime, young children, born but unwanted, are now trapped in the middle of a political fight between Russia and the U.S. The story is heartbreaking.
Sonia is only 8 years old, but she already knows a lot about love and rejection. She was given up at birth, adopted not long after, but then returned to the orphanage when she was 5 because her adoptive parents realized she had learning difficulties. I'd like to go back to my family, she says. I love them, and they just left me. Stiopa spends most of his day in a wheelchair. He has spina bifida. His dream is for his condition to be cured, so a family will want to adopt him. 6-year-old Collier doesn't know why he was given up at birth. He says, my parents kicked me out of the family. I want to go to a new family because then you have parents. These children all live in a Moscow orphanage. 3 to 18-year-olds. Some live with disabilities. Most don't. They're among Russia's 130,000 orphans. In 2011, only around 7,400 were adopted by Russian families. Despite the obvious need for more people who are willing to love these children, Russia has banned Americans from adopting here. And some officials are now pushing for a total ban on all international adoptions. The orphanage director, Nadezhda Hrikina, supports international adoption because she says there aren't yet enough Russian families willing to do it. She says she hopes the government will now encourage more Russians to adopt. Some Russian officials fought for the ban on American adoptions because they claim Russian children are often mistreated in the United States. It was also a response to an American law targeting Russian human rights abusers. Critics of the ban, like the tens of thousands of Russians who marched against it, say the country's orphans are suffering because of a political effort to steer Russia away from the West. The debate has split Russian society, but few here have ever spoken to its orphans. Vika has been cared for by the state since she was 7. She's now 16 and no longer hopes to be adopted, but she says when she was younger she wanted it desperately. Because, she says, It's always better for a child to be part of a family. Phil Black, CNN, Moscow.
And Currents will continue in a moment. New York's former governor is condemning New York's current governor for pushing to bring unlimited abortion into the state. George Pataki says Andrew Cuomo's new abortion law is wrong and should be rejected. As we have been reporting this week, tragically, New York is the nation's abortion capital. The Cuomo abortion law would permit abortion at any time for any reason. Stopping him will be the top priority of New York's Catholic bishops when they travel to Albany next month. Among the leaders, our Bishop of Brooklyn. And for this edition of Into the Deep, Bishop DiMarzio tells our news director, Ed Wilkinson, why the trip to the politicians is so necessary.
Bishop, nice to see you again.
Good to be here.
On March 20th, we're going to have the Public Policy Day again in Albany. All the Catholics from all around the state go up to Albany and we lobby, so to speak, for our priorities. Why do we do this?
Well, again, it's part of the public witness to our faith, and it's part of good citizenship. Again, elected officials are elected to respond to the needs of their electorate, and we, through this presence, let people, the elected officials, know what we believe, what we think. We're not forced them to do anything, but we have a right, like everyone else, to make our issues known and to show our priorities for different things.
Mm-hmm. Do you think this has any practical effect on the legislators?
Oh, I think it does. You know, sometimes elected officials are swayed by very few people who have made their will known. So again, I think we recognize that the power of the vote is as important as anything else in advocacy, showing that we have numbers of people that believe a certain thing.
Mm-hmm. And of course, the Catholic Conference has designated certain policies this year that they want to emphasize. And the top of the list, of course, is to stop this radical abortion bill that's being presented up there in Albany. What do you think of that? What do you think
it's rather interesting or surprising that the governor would propose in the State of the Union an expansion of the availability for abortion through Medicaid, where it's public funding. Only 3 or 4 states in the union allow funding for abortion through Medicaid, which is public funding. It's something that the state has to pay for in addition to what money they receive from the federal government. Again, the Democrats always had that saying that they would make abortion rare and safe and legal. Well, they're not making it rare by proposing what's happening now. Mm-hmm. You're expanding the availability. It's unfortunate, again, it's in the lower economic classes that this would happen. People who are on Medicaid, they're going to have to be poor to do that. Already, we see in the black community, 60% of pregnancies being aborted. It's an incredible number. Hispanics, it's about 40%. We see that poor people are kind of encouraged to end the pregnancy so that these people might not become a public charge in some way. Yeah. That's what's happening. We see in the state of New York, we've become the abortion capital of the United States. We've got to stop and think about what's really happening and how we can help people do better in ways of preserving life, of understanding their own human sexuality. There's promiscuity involved. On one side, you have, the right to abortion, but are we not looking at the responsibility of men for engaging in sex with women? Where's their part in this? The woman has a right, yes, they are saying, at least to decide what happens to her own body. It's not her own body, there's another body there. Yeah. But that's what's being said. And the other side, we're even considering that there are 2 people involved in the creation of life. So there's a lot of thinking that has to be rethought at this point.
Another agenda item is to preserve Catholic schools. And we just recently, of course, heard the news that the Archdiocese is going to close 24 schools. Right. We've gone through a whole system of consolidating schools here in Brooklyn and Queens. What could the state do for us, or what would we like them to do for us at this point?
Well, the state, first of all, could pay us the money they owe us. There's over $20 million owed to the schools in the state of New York for mandated services, things they require us to do by law, taking attendance, other things that we could be paid for. That's really been overdue for so many years. They have put in the budget at least to pay us for the current year, but there's back money owed that could be helpful. They could allow some of the things that we're proposing would be a tax credit, which is perfectly constitutionally legal, to be part of what we do in the state of New York, especially for corporations that would donate to nonprofit schools. That would be a tax credit for them, which is a very valuable thing, but at the same time, the money they donated would be very good and helpful to us. So there are certain things that could happen, maybe even looking at the sponsorship of charter schools by community organizations that might have a religious origin. That would be helpful in some places where, especially where the student body is almost 100% non-Catholic and we're running these schools. It's a community service. It could be a charter school situation that could be helpful. So there are things they could do.
Okay, well, we'll be along for the ride. We'll go up to Albany with you, and we'll see what happens. Thanks for being with us today.
Okay.
And today, the Universal Church celebrates the feast of the Chair of St. Peter, when Christ told the apostle that he was the rock upon which the church would be built. Cardinal Dolan is calling upon Catholics to remember Pope Benedict in a special way this day with masses and Eucharistic adoration. The next generation of priests is remembering the Holy Father today too, reflecting on his legacy and thinking about the challenges the next pope will face. These young American seminarians are studying for the priesthood at the North American College in Rome, and of course, Benedict's announcement caught them by surprise as well.
We just finished finals, so I was on kind of a pilgrimage vacation up around Turin. And we just finished lunch, and we were walking outside, and one of the guys in my group was, he heard just a little bit, there will be, or something about new election for the Pope. And we're like, oh, I wonder what that was, but we're thinking, oh, you probably caught that out of context or something. But then later that evening, we went to Mass, and at Mass, there were all these serious, heavy parts of like the intercessory prayers. We pray for the Pope in this hard time and this great decision he's made, and we pray for the church and all the struggles that are going on, and we're like, what in the world is going on? Oh my gosh, we definitely missed something today. And then just after Mass, we were told that the Pope has resigned, and it's just like, wow.
It's interesting, you see the last two popes, you see Blessed John Paul II, who started this new wave, this new evangelization, a re-evangelization of the church. And you see Benedict XVI picking up that same charge and leading it in areas of new media and areas in which the church knows that the gospel message needs to be heard. And I guess my hope is that the future Pope will pick up that same charge in the new evangelization and carry the message, the gospel message, to many people who have heard it once, but may need to hear it again.
When he was elected, there was a lot of talk about, oh no, the German shepherd, the real one who cuts down on crime is coming in. But I think through his papacy, he's shown that he's just, as he said, a humble servant in the vineyard of the Lord. And especially with his resignation, we see just how humble he is, that he accepted the papacy out of humble service to God because it was something that he didn't want. And I think he resigned in the same way, out of humble service to God, knowing that this is what is best for the church.
I think the Holy Father in the upcoming years is going to have to continue to work on a reform in the Curia, the Roman Curia. He'll have to deal with the reality of the sex abuse crisis, and he's going to have to work to further the faith in third world countries as well. I served in Africa over the summer, and spent 5 weeks there, and it was a really powerful experience, but the people there are so hungry for the faith, and so I think that's another initiative that the Holy Father will have to take up, is to reach out to the people in third world countries.
Up next, young people of the world say thank you to the Pope as Current's Week in Review continues after the break. Incredibly, many Queens residents are still without heat tonight because of Hurricane Sandy. Water has infiltrated gas lines, and as a result, there's no heat, hot water, or cooking for many living in Howard Beach, Hamilton Beach, and the JFK Airport area. The need to help our neighbors still suffering from that storm of last October is the main focus of the new annual Catholic Appeal for the Diocese of Brooklyn and Queens. The appeal kicks off this weekend. Monsignor Jamie Gigantiello is our Vicar for Development, and he came to Current Studios yesterday to tell us why this appeal is so important.
Is the major fundraiser that supplies all the resources for the ministries in our parishes and our dioceses. So people can contribute to that, and it's a way of expressing their faith.
This year, as with all other years, you urge parishioners to make sure that they pay a lot of attention to the most urgent ministries. And of course, this year, unfortunately, those are the victims probably of Hurricane Sandy. Is that the case?
That's true. Many parishes in our diocese were affected, some more than others. And through the work of Catholic Charities and all of the parishes, the outreaches in the parishes, we're able to at least assist those people to get their feet back on the ground. So many parishes and so many people were affected in so many ways. And also we have to take into account that many of the supporters, the donors in those parishes are not going to be able to do what they did in past years. So we're going to really need everyone's help to pitch in for those that cannot do this year.
So the challenge is on both sides of the issues.
Yes.
And you're talking about our diocese, you're talking about the Rockaways, Breezy Broad Channel, Howard Beach, Gerritsen Beach, Canarsie, Coney Island. It spans the gamut of communities that we know and love. How are the funds allocated, Monsignor Jamie?
Well, the funds are allocated through, of course, faith formation, Catholic Charities, for our schools, and migration services, and also parish assistance. So all of these different agencies will be able to receive funds to assist the people. Also, mainly through Catholic Charities, and we have had a couple of fundraisers already, but nothing compared to what's needed. So we really need to make this year's annual Catholic Appeal a big success to help these parishes and these people. And charity begins at home, and all the money that we raise goes to the Diocese of Brooklyn and Queens, the parishes in Brooklyn, and the people in Brooklyn and Queens. So we're really helping each other. The migration services, as you know, we are a diocese of immigrants, and many people benefit from that. Catholic Charities, and the chaplaincies in the hospitals and in our schools to provide, pastoral care to the sick, the elderly, and to the youth of our diocese. So everyone really is affected in one way or another. So we're giving, but we're receiving at the same time. And that's what stewardship is all about. The more you give, the more you receive. So we really need everyone to give a little bit more this year so that more people can receive.
Monsignor Jamie has a lot more to tell you about the appeal. My entire interview with him is available online at www.currentsny.net. We close our week in review with a couple of interesting facts about the papacy. The last pope, who was not even a priest, was Pope Leo X. The last German, of course, is Pope Benedict, but the one before him came 950 years ago, Pope Victor II. And finally, young people from around the world have prepared a video they call For a Young Man of 85. And in it, they say thank you to that young man.
Tack påven för att du försvarar livet.
Muchísimas gracias por su ejemplo, Santo Padre.
Holy Father, thank you for coming to visit us.
Mulțumesc că veniți să vizitezi din ce ai fost foarte bun.
Gracias por la ilusión que nos has transmitido.
Grazie Santo Padre per il suo servizio fedele e coraggioso.
Gracias por enseñarnos a ser humildes.
Ďakujem za vašu pokoru.
A ja za vašu úprimnosť.
Gracias por ayudarnos a ser mejores.
Gracias por cuidar a los enfermos.
Thank you, Pope Benedict.
За энергию вашего духа, служения и молодежи.
Thank you for your humility.
교황님, 트위터를 통해서 보내주신 메시지 감사합니다. 사랑합니다.
Thank you very much, Benedict.
Gracias por cuidar de la familia.
Terima kasih yang mulia atas segala bimbingannya.
Muchas gracias, Benedicto.
por todo lo que hiciste por los pibes.
Hvala ker si nam ponovno pomagal odkriti vrednoto tišine.
Gracias por las Jornadas Mundiales de la Juventud.
Queridos jóvenes, hemos vivido una aventura juntos. Antes de marcharme, os doy las gracias. Gracias a todos.
And thank you for joining us tonight. We leave you with a rather remarkable video from the Oregon Zoo. Eddie the otter is 16 years old. He has arthritis, but dunking basketballs helps him relieve the pain. I really think you'll enjoy him. Please remember to stay with us for all the latest breaking news on the papacy. For all of us here at Currents, I'm Liz Faublas. Have a good weekend.